everyone. Guess it's back. It's Commish back here with another team preview. This time we got Stuart and Likely Losers. Last year's shared champion, something that we haven't seen before in the history of the LOD. Definitely feel it was a fair process between you and Susie to win the title. I know other leagues out there would have rewarded Zebras the title because they just kept it as a standalone. I don't think that was a very fair process. I think the fair process definitely was putting it up to league vote, and league votes decided that you and Susie should be champion. And I totally agree with it 100%. I think you both should have been champion. I think the outcome could have gone either way, and nobody really truly did know, right? Pretty impressive, Stuart, that you're a two-time champion here in the 4 years that the LODs existed. And, every year your team always consistently does better than what I think it's going to do. And, if your preview is happening this early in the preview process, then obviously I don't think you're going to do so well this year, or I don't have your team ranked as high as maybe as it should be. And, that's probably the case. I'll be perfectly honest with you. But I do want to just get into your preview here, Stuart. First off, I'll also say it's an absolute pleasure having you in the league. You've been in this league a long time. You've been stuck in Tier 2 a long time. A lot of that has been bad luck. You've had some bad luck where, I've seen you have injuries after going all in, et cetera, et cetera. So eventually you'll get there. But in LOD, you are kicking some serious butt. I'm just going to share my screen here and we'll get into your preview. So here we are, Likely Losers. So offense, I gave you a power ranking of 9th. So I got you just slightly in the bottom half of the league, which might surprise you, I'm sure, considering you're a championship team. But let's just get into why I have you at 9th. So if we click on, it all starts with quarterback. And, you might be surprised here to see that I have you ranked 13th in quarterbacks. Wow, 13th. Like, that's probably what you're thinking. Well, Kyler Murray, the reason why I got you 13th is, I'm looking at this year, right? So Kyler Murray, torn ACL, he's not going to come back right away. It's going to take a bit, and he's not going to be the same mobile quarterback right away. There's also been questions about Kyler's work ethic in the past, and whether or not this guy, it was in his contract for him to watch tape. So, there you go. Kyler Murray to me is probably going to end up being a bit of a bust in terms of that big contract he got. And then you got David Carr, who, a lot of teammates, et cetera, last year were defending this guy, saying, like Devontae Adams came out, so David Carr is no different than A-Rod. Well, we know he is, because David Carr is no longer on the Raiders. And the Raiders turned out to be an absolute disappointment last year. So now he goes to a New Orleans team where, when I look at the wide receiver stable, Michael Thomas, is he even actually going to be on the field? We never know with that guy. And then you look at the rest of the wide receivers there, it's not that pretty. Like Chris Olave, of course, has talent, but after that, it's a pretty thin group. And because of that, I'm going to give you 13th, because I don't think Arizona and New Orleans are really going to make much traction this year in terms of success. And because of that, I don't think your quarterbacks will be that successful in fantasy. Running backs. So this is where I actually placed you 7th. I actually think it's kind of a high rating now. And the reason why you had 7th before is you had James Conner and Michael Carter. I would probably now reduce this running back rating. Of course, this rating came before that trade. So I am going to outline that and make that transparent. The 7th place rating came before the trade of trading James Conner, which is a legit RB1, at least at the moment. And Michael Carter, who's a great relief role, and especially with Breece Hall hurt for the first bit of the year there, he's probably going to have a bit of a role. You still have Dalvin Cook, who might not even be on a team now. Sounds like Minnesota is ready to move on. Ramondre Stevenson, I guess you could say, is an RB1 in New England for sure. And then Damian Harris went to Buffalo, and then you've added a rookie there in Valladay. So I liked your running back stable a lot more when you had James Conner, Michael Carter, to be honest. I thought you had, legit, I guess you could say 3 RB1s there with Cook, Stevenson, and Conner. But now that they're gone, I would reduce your ranking. But for the purpose of this video, I will give you seventh, but even Damian Harris in Buffalo, how much of a role is he going to have? That's a busy room now there in Buffalo. So it'll be interesting to see, and it'll be interesting to see where Dalvin Cook also lands as well as part of potential future release here. So I think your running back stable is actually in fairly big trouble. Trading Connor and Carter away. I understood the draft capital portion of it. There's no doubt about it. I thought it was a pretty decent trade for you in terms of rebuilding for the future. But maybe you're not trying to be a two-time champ or 2 times in a row by making the trade because Dalvin Cook's situation obviously makes this even more iffy. So I would definitely have you probably in the bottom half now in the running back stable. Wide receivers, so this one might shock the world. I'm giving you first. So this is where, when I look at your offensive ranking so far, we've gone through quarterbacks, running backs, and I haven't been too kind to you. But your wide receiver room I have at first place. Okay. A lot of reasons why. A lot of point producers. Okay. Like I look at the seven wide receivers that I have listed first, literally you could say are going to be pretty solid point producers in fantasy. I mean, CD, clear cut number one option. I traded him to you, I don't know, a year and a half ago or something. Stephon Diggs, still the number WR1 in Buffalo with Josh Allen throwing the ball. That's always a good thing. Jerry Jeudy, he's gonna be a producer. Christian Kirk's a producer. Tyler Lockett is still a producer, even at his age and his size. Odell is coming in as the WR1 there in Baltimore. And then Tyquan Thornton, I've been hearing rumors this guy might be the number one option in New England. So I think you have great 7 options there. Even if you throw in Curtis Samuel, there's 8 options there that are getting points for you that have regular roles on their teams. And I think that makes your wide receiver room a cut above everybody's else's. I don't know if anybody else out there in LOD could say, I have 8 wide receivers that could produce. Now, of course, you can only dress so many of those wide receivers. And, that could be a bit of a problem in terms of offensive production each week, especially when I look at your running backs. If one of your top 3 there isn't dressed, then you're putting a guy like Malik Davis in or Valladay. You're not going to get any points there. I mean, Valladay is obviously a flyer at this stage. So your wide receivers are going to have to pick up the slack. And obviously with the wide receiver talent you have, they're likely going to be filling all your flex spots outside running back and tight end. Next up, tight end. And I gave you a ranking of 10th. And I think that's pretty fair with who you have. Ertz, the veteran, went to Arizona, could be a starter there again this year. Of course, Trey McBride's waiting in the wings. So Zach Ertz time is almost done. Let's face it. Tyler Higbee, Rams offense. Tyler Higbee 2 years ago, sure. Tyler Higbee with a depleted Rams roster that looks dreadful and prime for the number 1 overall pick. Not so much. Jonnu Smith joined his old coach there in Atlanta, but Kyle Pitts is there. So, you might be able to rely on Jonnu Smith maybe for that 1 catch, 6 yards, 1 touchdown stat line that we see with some of these backup tight ends sometimes, but it's obviously not a path to clear targets. Jake Ferguson, be interesting to see if he'll actually have a role there, right? Like, I don't think it's concrete on who's going to be the TE1 there. So he could have a role. I gave you 10th again. I think Higbee, Ertz, Smith, these are well-known names, but they're just not stellar names, right? So definitely see you in the bottom half of the league, and that attributes to your 9th overall ranking. Could be even lower now because of your running back room, but we're going to stick it with 9th because your wide receiver room is stellar. All right, Stuart. So things go from bad to worse here, though. When I look at your defense, so I had you 9th in offense, defense 12th. Again, I'm not going to lie to you. I love the fact that you're in my division and we both won the division twice, but I can't believe you won the title twice, right? Like, when I looked at your team year over year, it's been good, but I've never looked at it like, like Deuce's team this year, which looks like clearly the clear-cut winner. But let's just get into it and why I have you on defense at 12th. So we'll start with the DLLBs. I actually think he has some pretty decent ones here. Daniil Hunter, Demarcus Lawrence, Leonard Williams. These are all good players. You throw in Jalen Phillips, Dexter Lawrence. So, Hunter, Lawrence, and Williams, these guys are going to get some pressures. They should produce some points for you in the DLLB hole. So I think that group is fairly solid, to be honest. It's the middle linebacker group again. I think it's okay. Not quite as good as what we saw from True North earlier in the previews. What I got here is Spillane. He's on a new team. We'll see if he gets that opportunity. Josie Jewell. This guy's hurt a lot, but he does seem to be involved. Christian Harris, I think, is going to get involved a little bit more. Levante David is kind of nearing the end of his career. I feel Leighton Vander Esch, I don't know about him. The injuries have kind of stunted his progress. Kenneth Murray, the Chargers brought in another linebacker, so I'm curious to see if Kenneth Murray actually will have a role. I know they've been disappointed with him. And then Jeremy Chin, of course, is that DBLB hybrid. And again, we'll see how much of a role he'll have in Carolina, with obviously them bringing in some other safety pieces, etc. And then when I look at your DBs, I'm not impressed, to be honest. Kirby Joseph, I know, is slated to be a starter in Detroit. So, he might not be a guy that a lot of people know, but he is slated to be a starter. Lewis Cine, we knew he was a high draft pick last year, came in, didn't look that great, right? So we'll see if he made progress in year two. He's going to have to for his own career. Cisco and then Taron Johnson. So, again, I look at the defense. It's I'll call it a decent, solid group for sure. But again, when I look at it overall compared to the rest of the league, that's why I have you in that third quarter of the league there in terms of how I think you're going to be able to produce. There are some guys getting old here, like Levante David. Guys with injury history like Jewell, Vander Esch. Which I think will hurt you a little bit. And then even those pass rushers, some of those guys are getting old, but they are a focal point on their squads. So I think it's pretty fluid, and your defense could find a way to get you some wins. But again, I don't think it's when I look at it compared to some of the other teams out there, I don't think it's the greatest defense by any means. So. So for Stuart, for you, I'll just have to look up here your draft outlook, but I think for this year, I don't see you, going back to where you were in terms of winning a title. I think it's awesome that you've won 2 titles, and I'm sure it feels good. Obviously getting the money and, obviously just having that consistent success. Next year, you actually did pretty good with draft picks. So this year, you didn't have a draft pick just like me and Deuce. Next year, because of that trade you made with Curly, you have a first, 2 seconds, 2/3, a fourth, and a fifth. And, I think ultimately you feel a retool is necessary. And I think that's exactly what you identified. You got the draft capital for Connor and Michael Carter, who, let's face it, they probably are eventually going to get into some reduced roles, maybe even starting this year. Michael Carter could see that right away here. So I think the draft capital you got made a lot of sense, but it will hurt you this year. And I think your team will just have to try to get that retool with some of the new draft picks next year. And you'll have to just kind of figure out which position groups will be worth adding in the draft. You have a fair amount of wide receivers. You're already strong at wide receiver. So it might be a running back, quarterback, tight end focus in the draft. Again, it's your first rounder, so I don't see you being one of the bottom teams. So, it's probably going to be a middle of the road pick. But if you want to move up in the draft, maybe there'll be potential there because you have more draft picks. Anyway, Stuart, I hope you enjoyed the preview. Good luck again this year, winning the Solomonic title. I'm definitely looking to hopefully break the tie there this year and get my 3rd title. But I love your competition, and you've always been a great owner here and great communicator, and you get back to people right away. So it's a pleasure to have you, and good luck this year.